My fiancé told me, "Don't call me your future wife." I nodded. That night, I quietly removed my name from every list she had built around me. 2 days later, she walked into a lunch event and froze when she saw what was waiting on her chair. But before that, there was the envelope on my chair. Black leather, gold lettering pressed into the front, placed there like a prop in a performance I had not agreed to join. "Open it," Camille said from the podium, smiling into the microphone as if she had just delivered the most charming line of the night. I stood in the Watergate Hotel ballroom with 300 people staring at me, and for a second, my throat closed. This was supposed to be my engagement celebration. Our engagement celebration. But Camille had not introduced me as her fiancé once that entire night. She had called me my good friend Wells 4 separate times in less than an hour. Now she was pointing at me like I was part of the entertainment. "Go on, Wells," she said. "Open it. I promise it's not a breakup letter." The room laughed. I picked up the envelope, and the strange thing was that my hands were steady. Inside was a single card on thick, expensive stock. It read, "Thank you for your generous support of Camille Royce's mayoral campaign. Your contribution of $850,000 has been noted. We look forward to your continued patronage." Beneath that, in Camille's own handwriting, she had written, "You've been such a good little donor. Don't worry. I'll find someone worthy of standing beside me." The room went silent. I looked up at Camille. She was still smiling, waiting for me to react, waiting for me to break down, waiting for me to make a scene she could use later. Poor Wells got emotional. Poor Wells couldn't handle being teased. Instead, I smiled back. "You're right," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the ballroom. "You do need someone worthy." Then I walked out. Behind me, I heard confused murmurs. I heard Camille call my name in that sweet, concerned public voice she used whenever cameras were near. I kept walking. In the parking garage, I sat in my 12-year-old Subaru Outback and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney, Dominic Crane. "Dominic, it's Wells Aldridge," I said. "Execute the extraction protocol for Camille Royce. Everything. Immediately." Dominic had been my family's attorney for 23 years. He was a former federal prosecutor, now a partner at Crane & Holloway, and he understood exactly what I meant. "Understood," he said. I told him to terminate the Super PAC funding before midnight. Camille's campaign headquarters lease was in her name, but my trust owned the building, so I told him to initiate eviction proceedings and give her the legal minimum notice. Her staff salaries were paid through the Royce Campaign Fund, which was funded almost entirely by the Aldridge Foundation. So I told him to cut off all transfers. The media consultant contracts had moral character clauses, and I wanted them voided. I told Dominic I would send him the documentation, and then I hung up. The second call was to my cousin, Dr. Margot Aldridge, Chief of Staff at Georgetown University Hospital. She had been begging me to join the board of directors for 2 years. "Margot," I said, "I'm ready to accept that board position, but there's something you need to know about one of your donors first." The third call was to my grandfather, Sterling Aldridge, former Secretary of Commerce and current CEO of Aldridge Holdings, the kind of man who had presidents on speed dial. "Wells," he said warmly, "how's the engagement party?" "It's over." There was silence. Then he asked, "What happened?" I told him. "She called me her good friend in front of 300 people, then made a joke about how much money I'd given her campaign." My grandfather was quiet for one more beat. Then he said, "That girl has no idea who you are, does she?" "No, sir." "Good. Keep it that way until tomorrow. Then burn her entire house down legally." "Already started." He laughed, sharp and satisfied. "That's my grandson. Call me when it's done." I drove home in the rain, watching the Washington Monument disappear behind fog. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. The problem had started 8 months earlier, though I did not recognize it at the time. I met Camille at a Georgetown fundraiser. She was running for city council then. Young, ambitious, photogenic, the kind of candidate who looked perfect on posters and spoke in sound bites that focus groups probably loved. I was there representing my family's foundation. We had donated to the venue, quietly, with no recognition expected. Camille approached me first, holding a glass of champagne. "You look bored," she said. "Networking events aren't my thing," I told her. "What is your thing?" she asked. "Urban development policy," I said, "specifically affordable housing initiatives." She blinked. "Seriously?" "I wrote my thesis on it. Johns Hopkins Public Policy Program." Her smile changed then. It became real. "That's actually what my campaign is focused on," she said. "Have you read the Whitford Report on Housing Displacement?" We ended up talking for 2 hours. She was smart, informed, and passionate about things I cared about. When she asked for my number, I gave it to her. Our first date was at a Thai restaurant in Adams Morgan, and she insisted on splitting the check because she said she did not believe in traditional gender roles or the expectation that one person should always pay. I respected that. Our second date was a walk through the National Arboretum, where she talked about her vision for D.C. affordable housing, education reform, police accountability, and a city that did not push ordinary people out just because wealthy developers wanted another luxury tower. She had plans, detailed plans. I fell for her vision before I fell for her. By the 3rd month, we were serious. She met my parents, or rather, She met my parents while believing they were retired teachers, which was technically true. Both of them had taught economics before my grandfather recruited them into the family business. Camille never asked what the family business was, and I did not volunteer the information. Operational security. Keep your private life private. Never let people treat you differently because of your name. Those were my grandfather's rules, and I had lived by them for 29 years. By the 6th month, Camille was running for mayor, an aggressive leap from city council to the mayor's office. But her polling was strong. Young voters loved her. Progressive donors loved her. And I loved her. So when she asked me to help with her campaign, I said yes. She needed money. A lot of it, because mayoral races in DC cost millions. I set up support through my family's foundation and a super PAC. Nothing illegal. Everything was transparent legally, but it was structured, so the money came from the Aldridge Foundation, without highlighting that I was an Aldridge. Camille thought the foundation liked her policies. She had no idea I was the foundation. I leased her a campaign headquarters in a prime location on the 14th Street corridor, 20,000 square feet, and she thought she had gotten a sweetheart deal from a friendly landlord. She did not know my trust owned the entire building. I helped hire her senior staff, connected her with consultants, and introduced her to donors who mattered. She thought I was just well-connected. She did not know I was the connection. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was supporting her vision and that she had earned the help. But the truth was simpler. I was in love, and I was hiding who I was because I wanted to be loved for myself, not for what I had. It was a classic mistake. The first red flag came in March. Camille and I were at her campaign headquarters late at night, and she was staring at spreadsheets, stressed about polling numbers and ad buys. "I need a bigger media buy," she said. "But we're tapped out. The foundation maxed out their contribution limit," I said carefully. "There are other donors." "Who?" she asked. "I've called everyone. Nobody wants to commit until they see movement in the polls." I said, "What about personal wealth?" She looked at me like I had said something ridiculous. "Wells, I don't have personal wealth. My parents are accountants. I work in nonprofit development. This campaign is bankrupting me." I told her I could help. "With what?" she asked. "You're a policy consultant. You make what, $60,000 a year?" I had never told her I was a policy consultant. She had assumed it. "Something like that," I said. "Then how would you help?" "You're barely covering your own rent." I actually owned my condo outright, but Camille had seen my Subaru, my off-the-rack clothes, my refusal to eat at expensive restaurants, and she had built a story around me. In her mind, I was the struggling but passionate policy wonk who believed in her vision. It was not entirely wrong. I did believe in her vision, but I was not struggling. "I'll figure something out," I said. That night, I transferred another $200,000 into the super PAC, routed through 3 intermediary organizations, completely legal and completely invisible. Camille's media buy went through. She never asked where the money came from. I told myself her not asking was trust. That was the lie I needed at the time. The truth was that she did not ask because she had already decided the answer did not matter. Only the result mattered. I was a faucet. You do not thank a faucet. You turn it on when you are thirsty and forget about it the rest of the day. The second red flag came in May at a donor dinner, one of those high-dollar events where every plate cost $1,000 and every handshake carried a calculation. I had bought a table, 8 seats, and filled it with family, friends, and people who would donate to Camille's campaign as a favor to me. Camille worked the room brilliantly. She shook hands, remembered names, and made every person feel important. But when she reached our table, something shifted. She introduced me to Walter Brandt, the CEO of a regional development firm. "This is Wells," she said, placing her hand on my shoulder. "He's been such a great supporter. Helps with policy research. Very detail-oriented. Detail-oriented." Like I was her assistant. Brandt looked at me and asked, "You work for the campaign?" "I volunteer," I said. Camille squeezed my shoulder and added, "Wells is very passionate. He does a lot of the boring work nobody else wants to do." The table laughed politely. I forced a smile. Later that night in her apartment, I brought it up. "Why did you introduce me like that?" "Like, what?" she asked. "Like I'm your intern." She frowned. "Wells, you're being sensitive. I was complimenting you. You do help with policy research. You made it sound like that's all I do. Is it not?" I stared at her. "Camille, I'm your fiancé, and you're also my policy volunteer. Those aren't mutually exclusive. You didn't introduce me as your fiancé because it was a donor event." She sighed like I was being difficult. "I need them to see me as professional and serious, not as someone who brings her partner to work functions. We're engaged, and that's personal. This was business." She kissed me on the cheek and went to bed. I sat on her couch for 2 hours after that, trying to convince myself she was right, trying to tell myself I was being overly sensitive, and that separating personal from professional was smart. But something in my chest had gone cold. The next morning, I drove past the campaign headquarters before sunrise and sat in the parking lot for a while. My building, my lease, my money keeping the lights on inside. I watched her staff arrive. The staff I had helped hire, badging into a door I owned so they could work for a candidate I had built, and not one of them knew my name. I told myself that was the point. Quiet money, no recognition expected. But sitting there in the dark, I understood something for the first time. There is a difference between being private and being erased. Camille had stopped doing the first and started doing the second. The third red flag came in July. Camille's campaign was gaining momentum. She had pulled ahead in 3 polls, endorsements were coming in, and her public profile was growing. There were interviews, podcasts, magazine features, and photo spreads about her authentic life. One profile in D.C. Metro magazine included pictures of her apartment, her campaign office, and her jogging route. I was not in any of the photos. The article said she was focused on her career and not interested in romantic distractions. When I asked her about it, she shrugged. The photographer wanted to include you. I said no. Why? I asked. Because it would raise questions. People would want to know who you are, what you do, how we met. And frankly, Wells, your story isn't interesting enough to help the campaign. My hands went cold. My story? You're a policy consultant. You volunteer for progressive causes. That's great, but it doesn't add anything to my narrative. I'm your fiancé, and that's why I'm protecting you from scrutiny. Scrutiny? If people started digging into your background, asking questions about your family or your finances or your connections, it could create problems. What kind of problems? She said, the kind where people accuse me of nepotism or favoritism or being funded by secret money. I almost laughed. Camille, you are being funded by secret money. She stared at me. What? The super PAC, the foundation donations, the headquarters lease? Where do you think all of that came from? From people who believe in my vision. People, I repeated, not person. Her eyes narrowed. Wells, what are you saying? I nearly told her everything right there. I nearly told her I was the Aldridge behind the Aldridge Foundation, that my family's money had built half of Northwest D.C., that I could make or break her campaign with a single phone call. But something stopped me. Pride, maybe. Stubbornness. Or the desperate hope that she would see me without needing to know my bank balance. Nothing, I said. Forget it. She studied me for a moment, then smiled. You're stressed. The campaign is stressful. I get it. Why don't you take a few days off from volunteering? Recharge. I'll handle things. Take a few days off from supporting the campaign I had funded. Take a few days off from helping the candidate I had built. Sure, I said. Good idea. I did not volunteer for the next week. She did not notice. The fourth red flag, the one that should have been the last, came in August. Camille's campaign manager quit for personal reasons, something about a family emergency, and was gone within 48 hours. Camille panicked. I need someone immediately, she said. Someone who knows the campaign inside and out. Someone who can keep everything running. I could help, I offered. Wells, no, she said instantly. This is a professional position. I have experience in policy research. This is campaign management, strategy, fundraising, media relations. You've never done any of that. I had been doing all of that for her for 8 months, but she did not see it. She hired someone else, a consultant from New York named Renata Vidal. Renata was expensive, abrasive, and had 20 years in political consulting. She immediately started questioning every decision the previous campaign manager had made, including the building lease. This is way too good to be true, Renata said in a meeting I happened to be volunteering at. Who is the landlord? Camille said. I don't know. The lease is through some trust. Aldridge Holdings, or something. Renata's eyes narrowed. Aldridge Holdings? The development company? I guess. Camille, do you know who they are? They're one of the biggest private real estate firms in the region. They do not give sweetheart deals to political campaigns. Camille shrugged. Well, they did. Why? Maybe they like my housing policy. Renata looked skeptical, but she let it go. I sat in the corner, invisible, while they discussed my family's company like it was a mystery. That night, Renata pulled me aside. She had the look of someone doing math in her head. You've been around since the beginning, she said. The cheap building, the consultants who showed up out of nowhere, the donors arriving in clusters. Somebody is carrying this campaign and hiding it. Wells, do you know who? I shrugged. I just do policy research, I said. She held my gaze a second too long, then nodded slowly, as if she had decided I was either useless or lying and could not yet tell which. She was the only person in 8 months who came close. Camille never did. The engagement party was Camille's idea. We need to formalize our relationship publicly, she said in September. Show donors I'm stable, committed, ready for leadership. I stared at her. I thought you wanted to keep our relationship private. That was before. Now I'm the front runner. People want to see the whole package. The whole package? Me and my life partner. Someone who supports my vision. Your fiancé, I said. She gave me a careful smile. Yes, but we need to be smart about how we present it. We spent 2 weeks planning the party. Camille invited 300 people, donors, politicians, journalists, community leaders, campaign staff, and everyone else who could help her image. I invited no one. Don't you want your family there? She asked. They're low-key people, I said. This isn't their scene. What about friends? I'll celebrate with them separately. The truth was simpler. I did not want my grandfather showing up and accidentally revealing who I was. I did not want my cousin mentioning the hospital board. I did not want anyone connecting the dots. Even then, I was still hoping Camille would see me first. The week before the party, we were arguing about the seating chart, about which donors should sit where, and whether my name belonged anywhere near the head table. Camille set down her pen and said, "Wells, don't call me your future wife in front of these people. Not yet. Not until after the primary." I nodded. I did not argue. I just nodded. And something inside me, the part that had spent 8 months shrinking itself to fit beside her, finally went quiet. That night, while she slept, I opened my laptop and looked at every list she had made, every donor sheet, every contract, every piece of infrastructure with my money behind it and my name buried underneath. Then I began, very quietly, to take my name off all of it. The party was held at the Watergate Hotel because Camille thought it was iconic, historic, and perfect for photos. The bill was $23,000. I paid it through a shell company, and Camille thought a donor had covered it. On the night of the party, I arrived early in my best suit, navy, well-fitted, nothing flashy. Camille was already there, holding court with reporters. She looked stunning in a red dress with perfect makeup, the kind of woman who photographed like a magazine cover. When she saw me, she smiled, but her eyes flicked to someone behind me, a photographer, and the smile changed. It became performative. "Wells," she said, kissing my cheek. "You made it. Of course. Go mingle. I need to finish these interviews." So I mingled. I talked to donors I had helped recruit, staff I had helped hire, and consultants I had connected her with. None of them knew who I was. A donor I had personally recruited shook my hand and asked, "So, how do you know Camille?" "Policy work," I said. He nodded and was already looking past me for someone more important. I let him go. There was a moment, standing there with a drink I was not drinking, when I almost said it. I almost told a stranger my real name just to hear someone in that room understand what it meant. But I did not. Old habit? Operational security. Keep your private life private. But I was starting to see that the rule my grandfather had given me to protect myself had become the exact thing Camille used to disappear me. At 7 o'clock, Camille took the stage. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began. "This campaign has been incredible, and it's because of people like you, people who believe in a better DC." The room applauded. Then she said, "I also want to acknowledge someone special, my good friend Wells, who has been such a wonderful supporter." She pointed at me. "My good friend, not my fiancé, not my partner, friend." The room clapped politely, and I stood there feeling something crack in my chest. Camille continued, "Wells has helped with policy research, volunteer coordination, and all the unglamorous work that makes campaigns run. He has been a great asset to the team." Asset to the team. I looked at her hand. The engagement ring I bought her was on her finger, but she had not mentioned that we were engaged. After the speech, I found her in the back hallway. "Camille?" "Wells," she said brightly. "Great event, right? You called me your friend." "What?" "You introduced me as your good friend, not your fiancé." She blinked. "Oh, right. I thought about saying fiancé, but it felt too personal for a campaign event. This is our engagement party." Her expression shifted. "It's a donor appreciation event that doubles as our engagement party. You invited 300 people to celebrate our engagement and didn't mention we're engaged." Her face hardened. "Wells, don't do this. Not tonight." "Do what?" "Make everything about you. This is my night, my campaign, my moment. I thought it was our moment." Then, she said the sentence that finished what the envelope later confirmed. "It would be if you had done anything worth acknowledging." The words hit like a physical blow. "Excuse me?" "Look, Wells, I appreciate what you do. I really do. But let's be honest, you're a volunteer, a policy researcher. You're not a major donor. You're not a political operative. You're not someone these people need to know." I stared at her. "Camille? I need to be smart about optics. If I introduce you as my fiancé, people will ask questions. What does he do? How much does he make? Is he using her for political access? I can't afford those questions right now. So you're hiding me. I'm protecting both of us. By pretending I don't exist? By keeping our personal relationship separate from my professional life." She touched my arm. "Wells, please try to understand. This campaign is everything to me. I need people to see me as strong, independent, someone who earned this, not someone who got help from a partner." I said quietly, "I'm not your accessory. You're my fiancé," she replied. "And that's beautiful. But tonight, can you please just let me have this moment?" I looked at her then, really looked at her, and saw someone I did not recognize. "Sure," I said. "Have your moment." I walked back into the ballroom, and that was when I saw the black leather envelope on my chair, the thank you note about my generous donation, the handwritten joke about me being a good little donor. I knew she had put it there. It was a private joke, a reminder that my role was to write checks, not stand beside her. So I opened it in front of everyone. I read the note. I felt 300 pairs of eyes on me. Then I left. Dominic called me at midnight. "It's done," he said. Super PAC funding terminated, building lease voided, staff contracts canceled, campaign account frozen. She'll wake up to a very different financial reality tomorrow. What about the media consultants? They're pulling their teams. Breach of contract. They'll announce it publicly. Makes them look principled. Good. Dominic paused. Wells, you should know this is going to destroy her campaign. She has nothing without your infrastructure. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought about the envelope on my chair. I thought about the way she had called me her good friend in front of 300 people. I thought about 8 months of pretending I was small so she could feel big. I thought about her saying, "Don't call me your future wife," and watching me nod. Yes, I said. Okay, Dominic replied. One more thing. Your grandfather asked me to prepare a press statement in case this becomes news. What kind of statement? The kind that clarifies the Aldridge Foundation's reasons for withdrawing support, moral character concerns, misrepresentation of endorsements, that sort of thing. Hold it, I said. Don't release it unless she makes this public first. Understood. I hung up and sat in the dark, watching the red lights blink on the Washington Monument in the distance. I did not sleep. I kept the press statement open on my laptop, read it twice, and then closed it. Not yet. If she stayed quiet, this could be clean. A foundation reallocating funds, nothing personal in the public record. But I knew Camille. I knew she would not stay quiet. People who treat others as invisible never believe the invisible can speak. The next morning, my phone exploded. Text messages from Camille. Calls, voicemails. Wells, what happened? The campaign account is frozen. The headquarters is being evicted. The consultants are backing out. Wells, call me. I did not answer. Instead, I met with Margot at Georgetown University Hospital. She was waiting in her office, a corner suite on the 15th floor, with a view of the Potomac. Wells, she said, standing with a smile, I'm thrilled you're joining the board. Though I suspect this is going to make waves. Why? I asked. Because you're an Aldridge, and you've been invisible for years. People are going to ask questions. Let them. She studied my face. What happened? Someone needed to learn what I'm worth. The fiancé? Ex-fiancé. Margot's smile went sharp. Good. She never deserved you. The board announcement went out that afternoon. Georgetown University Hospital was pleased to welcome Wells Aldridge to its board of directors. Mr. Aldridge served as managing director of the Aldridge Foundation and brought extensive experience in urban development policy and philanthropic strategy. It was a small announcement buried in the hospital's press releases, but in D.C., small announcements reached the right people quickly. By 5 o'clock, 3 journalists had called me. By 6, someone had connected Wells Aldridge to Aldridge Holdings. By 7, someone had connected Aldridge Holdings to Camille's campaign headquarters. By 8, the story broke. D.C. mayoral candidate loses major financial backing after personal dispute. Sources confirmed that the Aldridge Foundation, primary funder of Camille Royce's mayoral campaign, had withdrawn all support following an undisclosed incident. The foundation, controlled by the prominent Aldridge family, had contributed nearly $850,000 to Royce's campaign through a super PAC. Wells Aldridge, grandson of former Commerce Secretary Sterling Aldridge, had recently been engaged to Royce. The engagement had reportedly been terminated. Camille called me 17 times that night. I did not answer. Day 2 brought the collapse. Camille's campaign released a statement saying she was deeply disappointed by the Aldridge Foundation's decision to withdraw support. She said their funding had never been conditional on her personal relationship with me, and she questioned the ethics of using donor money as leverage in a private dispute. It was the wrong move. Dominic released our counterstatement immediately. The Aldridge Foundation withdrew support due to concerns about Miss H's, Royce's character and integrity. Our funding decisions are based on alignment with our values. Recent events revealed a pattern of behavior inconsistent with those values. We wish Miss Royce well in her future endeavors. Pattern of behavior, character, concerns. That was the kind of language that made donors nervous. By afternoon, 3 more major donors had pulled out. By evening, Renata Vidal had resigned as campaign manager. Her statement was damning. She said she had joined the Royce campaign because she believed in Camille's vision for D.C., but she could not in good conscience continue working for a candidate who misrepresented her relationships and funding sources to voters. The public, she said, deserved honesty from its leaders. By the next news cycle, Camille's primary opponent had seized the opening. The rival campaign released one line praising transparency in public life, and every outlet correctly read it as a knife. A digital ad appeared within hours, grainy footage of Camille at a podium saying, "I built this myself," cut against a chyron listing the Aldridge Foundation's contributions. It ran for free, shared by strangers, because nothing travels faster than a self-made story coming apart in public. Camille's campaign began hemorrhaging. Staff quit, volunteers disappeared. Her polling dropped 12 points in 3 days, and somehow, she still did not understand why. The lunch was her campaign's attempt at damage control, a grassroots supporter appreciation event at the Hamilton. 50 donors were invited, mostly small-dollar contributors, the kind of people who gave $25 or $50 because they believed in her message. Camille advertised it as intimate and authentic. I was not invited, but Dominic called me that morning. Wells, there's something you should know. Camille is planning to make a speech about you at her lunch event today. What kind of speech? The kind where she paints herself as the victim and you as the vindictive ex who sabotaged her campaign. She's going to position this as a power issue. Wealthy man tries to destroy self-made woman. My jaw tightened. She's going to lie publicly. Then you need to be there. I was hoping you'd say that, I told him. Meet me there. Bring Spencer from litigation. Already arranged, Dominic said. And Wells? Yes? Wear the navy suit. The one you wore to your grandfather's state dinner. Why? Because you need to look like who you actually are. I arrived at the Hamilton at noon. The event was in a private room with glass walls, and I could see Camille inside, smiling, shaking hands with supporters, looking confident and energized, like she believed this would be her comeback moment. Dominic and Spencer were waiting outside. Spencer Royce, no relation to Camille, had been with Crane and Holloway for 8 years. He was a former DOJ prosecutor, the kind of attorney who made judges nervous. Everything is ready, Spencer said, handing me a black leather folder. The documentation is thorough. Wire transfers, lease agreements, communication logs, consultant contracts, everything timestamped and notarized. And the other thing? I asked. Handled. I walked into the room. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Camille was mid-sentence with a donor when she froze. Then her public smile clicked into place. Wells, she said. What a surprise. I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't invited, I said, but I thought I should hear what you have to say. Her smile flickered. Of course. You're always welcome. She turned back to her supporters, but her movements were less confident now. She kept glancing at me. Twice, she lost her place mid-sentence and had to laugh it off. The supporters did not notice, but I did. She was performing confidence for the room, while watching the one person who could end the performance sit quietly and wait. I was in no hurry. I had waited 8 months. I could wait through a salad course. Lunch was served. Salad, salmon, wine. I did not touch mine. At 12:30, Camille stood to speak. Thank you all for being here, she began. These past few days have been difficult. As many of you know, my campaign faced unexpected financial challenges when a major donor withdrew support. Sympathetic murmurs moved through the room. What you might not know is that this donor was my former fiancé, Wells Aldridge. She gestured toward me. Wells and I had a relationship. I cared about him deeply. But when I chose to keep our personal lives separate from my campaign, when I chose to maintain my independence and my integrity, he used his family's wealth to punish me. The room gasped. He withdrew nearly $1 million in funding. He evicted my campaign from our headquarters. He used his connections to destroy relationships with consultants and media partners. All because I would not let him control me. She was crying now. Actual tears. This is what self-made candidates face. When we refuse to be bought, when we insist on our own power, the people with money try to destroy us. People started applauding. Some stood. Camille looked straight at me. Wells, if you're here to intimidate me, it will not work. I am not afraid of you or your family's money. I am going to rebuild this campaign, and I am going to win because DC deserves a leader who cannot be bought or controlled. The room erupted. I waited for the noise to settle. Then I stood. May I respond? Camille blinked. This isn't really a debate format. It's not a debate, I said. It's a clarification. I walked to the front of the room, and Dominic handed me the black folder. My name is Wells Aldridge, I began. Many of you might not know me. That was intentional. I prefer to work behind the scenes, support candidates quietly, and let the work speak for itself. I opened the folder. For 8 months, I supported Camille's campaign, not just financially, but structurally. I leased her the campaign headquarters through my family's trust. I connected her with consultants. I helped develop her policy platform. I introduced her to donors who became her biggest contributors. I pulled out the first document. Here is the wire transfer showing the initial Super PAC funding, $200,000, February 14th. I held it up so the room could see. Here is the lease agreement for the campaign headquarters, Aldridge Holdings to Royce for mayor. Below market rate, $14,000 a month for a space worth $40,000. I pulled out another page. Here are the consultant contracts, media strategy, digital advertising, opposition research, all paid through the Aldridge Foundation, all at my direction. The room was silent now. I laid down another document. This is the donor ledger. 47 contributors at the campaign's 3 largest fundraisers. I personally introduced 31 of them to Camille. Most of you in this room were invited to events I paid for, in a building I owned, to support a candidate my family funded. That is not an accusation. It is just the paperwork. Camille's face was going pale. I continued. Camille told you I withdrew funding to punish her for maintaining her independence. That is not accurate. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo of the black leather envelope. This is the envelope I found on my chair at our engagement party. An engagement party she invited 300 people to, but never once mentioned we were engaged. I showed them the thank you note, the one mocking me for being a generous donor. She put this there as a joke, a reminder that my role was to fund her campaign, not stand beside her as her partner. Camille looked like she had stopped breathing. I turned back to the room, She called me her good friend in her speech that night, not her fiancé, because acknowledging our relationship would have made her look weak, dependent, or less impressive to donors. A week before the party, she told me in private, "Don't call me your future wife." Then I looked directly at her. "You told me I was not interesting enough to help your campaign. You told me my story was not worth telling. You told me I should stay in the background where I belonged." "Wells," she whispered. "I didn't mean, you meant exactly that," I said. "And that's fine. You are entitled to your opinion about me. But you are not entitled to my money, my family's connections, or my continued support while you humiliate me publicly." I faced the supporters again. I did not withdraw funding to punish Camille for being independent. I withdrew funding because she treated me like an ATM while presenting herself as self-made. She built her campaign on my family's infrastructure while telling voters she had done it all herself. The room was completely still. I want to be clear about one thing, because Camille used the word power 3 times, and I think she meant it. I never asked her for a vote, a policy, a contract, or a seat at any table. I asked to be called her fiancé at a party I paid for. That is the entire crime she is describing. I pulled out one final document. This is a statement from Renata Vidal, Camille's former campaign manager. She resigned because, and I'm quoting here, "Candidate Royce systematically misrepresented the sources and extent of her campaign funding, creating ethical concerns about transparency and honesty with voters." I set it on the table. So yes, I withdrew my family's support. Not because Camille refused to be controlled, but because she was dishonest with voters, with donors, and with me. Silence stretched across the room. Then someone in the back began clapping, slowly at first. Then others joined. Not everyone, but enough. I closed the folder and handed it to the nearest reporter. "It's all in there," I said. "Every number, every signature, every date. You don't have to take my word for anything." Then I walked toward the door. Dominic and Spencer followed. Camille called after me, "Wells, wait. Please let me explain." I stopped and turned around. "You had 8 months to explain. You had 8 months to see me, to introduce me as your fiancé instead of your intern." Her voice cracked. "I made a mistake." "You made a lot of mistakes," I said, "but the biggest one was thinking I would stay invisible forever." Then I walked out of the Hamilton into the bright October sunlight. Behind me, the room was already turning. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. A reporter opened the folder. Donors pulled out their phones. Camille stood alone at the podium, the tears still on her face, but the applause gone. For the first time since I met her, she had no one left to perform for. And for the first time in 8 months, I did not feel like a shadow standing in the corner of someone else's story. I was Wells Aldridge. I had always been Wells Aldridge. She just chose not to see it until the cost of looking away finally came due.